You just can't compete with large massage chains. There's only one of you. And if you try to price your services lower than the massage chain in town, that is just a race to the bottom. You cannot create a sustainable practice like that. Here's what to do instead. Welcome to Do It With Intention, the podcast for massage and bodywork therapists. I'm your host, Mindy Totten, a mentor and coach for bodyworkers who want to turn their passion for the work they do into successful businesses that they love, all without burning out or selling out. For the last 16 plus years, I've created a successful 6-figure CranioSacral Therapy practice in a small city in coastal North Carolina. Over those years, I have met so many skilled, big-hearted therapists who are struggling to make their bodywork businesses work for them. Not because they weren't terrific therapists, but because they didn't know how to make the business side of their practices work. It became my mission to help other massage and bodywork therapists build practices that support not only your soul, but also your bottom line. On the Do It With Intention podcast, we dive deep into what it takes to build and to sustain a profitable massage or bodywork business. We have honest conversations about what really works and what doesn't as you create the ideal practice for you. After all, you do great work in the world and you deserve to make a great living doing it. But you've got to be intentional about it, not only in your modality, but in your business too. That's how bodyworkers do it with intention. Hey there. Welcome back to the Do It With Intention podcast. I'm your host, Mindy Totten. And today we continue our series on being intentional on the business side of your practice. Now, most of you listening, I'm sure, are very intentional with the therapeutic side of your practice, using intention behind which modality you practice, or even which techniques you decide to use. But often we forget to be intentional on the business side of things as well. And this series is about taking your intention for your business and really nailing down some action steps that you can take to be intentional with your business. Today, we're going to talk about being intentional with your business model. Your business model. Now, if I were to ask you what your business model is in your practice, what would you say? And no, getting as many people through the door as possible is not a business model. That's what I used to think. Come on, everybody, come on and get work done, right? Most therapists don't even think about this, but you need to be intentional in your business model. So let's take a look at the 3 most common business models for body workers: trying to scale, a subscription model, and a boutique business model. First of all, in a scalable business model, this is when a business tries to sell as many of its things, its widgets, its services as possible, as inexpensively as possible. This is what you see, and that's called scaling, right? So you have this and you want to scale it so that many franchises or many places can do the same thing. But it depends on, if something's scalable, you want to sell a whole bunch of them, that's scaling, at as inexpensive a price point as possible. And you will be able to make a ton of money because you're selling a gazillion of these widgets. So this is what you see, if you watch Shark Tank. That's why Mr. Wonderful is always saying, well, how are you going to scale it, right? Well, an example of a company that uses this business model is McDonald's. McDonald's sells as many burgers as possible, cheaper than anyone else, and it relies on volume or scaling to make its profit. So you sell billions of hamburgers, you can sell them cheaper than somebody who sells 20 hamburgers a day on the side of the road. So for a solo bodywork practitioner, this is not a realistic business model. You cannot compete with the large massage chains. There's only one of you. And if you try to price your services lower than them, lower than anyone else in town, that is just a race to the bottom. And it's not sustainable for your practice. It's impossible for you to scale or to get the volume of sessions that you would need to make ends meet at a really low price point. So if you're a solo practitioner and you're not interested in hiring other people or franchising your work, a scalable business model is probably not going to work for you. Okay, the second type of business model that practitioners use, and there's been a big emphasis on this, I've seen it in the past, 5 or 10 years, is the subscription business model. In this model, people pay a monthly fee that's typically lower than what people who are not on the subscription pay. And then they come in once a month or once a week or whatever you decide that your subscription is going to be. Most models that I've seen with the most businesses that I've seen using this business model are use it or lose it. In other words, if the client doesn't come in that month, they forfeit the fee that they paid. So this is a little more sustainable, a little more practical than the scalable business model. And I have seen a handful of practitioners make it work, but there are a couple of things to be careful of if you're considering a subscription business model. The first is it's very labor intensive to try to keep track of everything. So unless you already have an assistant working for you, or you're super highly organized and you love this kind of thing, you might have a hard time keeping up with the back end of things. Which clients have paid what, whose credit cards have expired, who's going out of town and wants to skip this month's session, and on and on. So unless you're super organized and you have the time to carefully set up the back end, this might not be the business model for you. Another thing to consider with this model is the difficulty of tailoring it to each client's unique needs. That's why I'm not a huge fan of this model. So what if someone needs, your subscription model is to come in once a month, but what if somebody needs weekly appointments one month and then is going to be out of town the following month? How do you handle that? And, there are ways to handle it, but these are things that you need to consider. Or what if a client asks if his daughter can take his appointment this month? How's that going to work in your business? If you're called to use a subscription business model, be sure that you are super, super clear about each piece of the puzzle so that your clients will feel lucky, that they get to work with you and not like you're clumping them in with everyone else that you see. Okay, number 3, finally, this is the business model that I suggest for solo bodywork practitioners. And we go into great detail inside the bodywork project with this. This is the business model that's called the boutique business model. This is where you offer such a premium service from the very first time someone contacts you all the way through with your follow-up after that initial appointment and after other appointments. You have such an outstanding premium service that you can charge premium prices for that experience. By charging more for your outstanding services, you have to see fewer people and you can still make more money. So the question, of course, comes up, well, how do I create premium services? And there's lots of ideas on this podcast. And as I said, we go into a great deal of detail in every single piece of this inside the Bodywork Project, because it's the most powerful business model that individual practitioners can use to serve people better and earn more income. The boutique business model, charging premium prices for premium services. Okay, so there you have it. You've got the scalable business model, the subscription business model, and the boutique business model. Be intentional around which business model you choose for your practice so that you can serve your clients better and stand out from the crowd. Join me for our next episode in this series, where we're going to talk about how you can be intentional in your pricing. Until then, keep doing your beautiful work, keep making the world a touch kinder, and keep doing it with intention. Thanks for coming on this journey with me today. I know what it takes to find time to fit something like a podcast into your busy day, and I so appreciate that you tuned in and listened all the way to the end. We've got all the links from today's episode in the show notes that you can find over at mindytotten.com/podcast. That's Mindy Totten, TOTTEN.com/podcast. If you really enjoyed today's conversation, I'd love for you to take a quick moment to leave a review on Apple Podcasts. And make sure that you subscribe so that you can download each episode as soon as it comes out. That'll help us get this podcast in front of more massage and body workers like you so that we can all work together to make the world a touch kinder. Okay, that's it for today. It's my pleasure and my privilege to be with you on this journey. I'll see you next week, same place, same time. Until then, get out there and do it with intention.